This game reminds me of how nervous I was for the first game last year. This team makes me really, really nervous. If you look at a team that has scored 55.5 points so far, and their total offense average is 527 yards a game. They had a brand new quarterback started his first game last week. He threw 6 touchdown passes and threw for 294 yards. They've thrown for 10 touchdown passes already this season. Last year they threw for 12 the entire season. And then all you have to do is go back here and look at their size. And I'll give it to you real quick, because they might be the biggest offensive line we play against. Their left tackle is 6'5", 312. Their left guard is 6'6", 293. Their center is 6'4", 302. Their right guard is 6'8", 342. Their right tackle is 6'8", 304. And their tight end, as soon as I find them, their tight end is 6'4", 270. Not only that, they have one of the fastest receivers we've seen on film. His name's Harden. If I'll give you his number too, he's about as fast as anybody we've ever played against around here. Greg Harden, number 84. That leads their division in yardage per game. He caught 2 passes, one for 66 yards and a touchdown. I think the other one was 34 yards and a touchdown just in the last game. So on the schedule, it doesn't look like much, but in reality, it's scary.
Coach, how different is this? I mean, game planning last week against Army and turning around to game plan an offense like this, like how much of a switch is that for your defense to take?
That's the biggest difficulty we have on defense. You go from a spread-type team, which is Washington is kind of a spread-type team. And then you played a triple option team in Army, and now you're playing a team that is very similar to us. They run similar formations. They run similar personnel groups. So they get into a pro set sometime and run power plays and play action pass, and then sometimes they put 4 wide receivers in there and run the spread. So they're the most diverse team we've played so far, but it's really hard coming off a triple option week into something else. But that happens every time you play a triple option team.
Does it maybe help that they're so similar to you because your defense is used to seeing a lot of the stuff?
Except we haven't seen them for 2 weeks. We've been working on nothing but scout team for 2 weeks, and we haven't really gone against our offense. So, and it doesn't do our offense any good to go against us either, because our defense is completely different than their defense.
And Rocky, speaking of defense, can you kind of evaluate how far along the defense is this season and what you've been happy with?
Well, I've been happy with the last 6 quarters that they've played. All but one series of down in Army. That's as good as I've ever had a team play against a triple option. There was one series in the second half that we looked like the old days where they had about 5 or 6 plays and scored so fast it was amazing. But other than that series, that's the best I've ever had a defense play against a triple option, because you know my feeling about the triple option.
What would you attribute that to?
I think they just played really hard. Now someone said we looked fast, and I think I don't think we're any faster than we were last year or the year before. I think what they do is at the linebacker and secondary position, they feel very comfortable in our defensive scheme, so maybe they're reacting a little quicker than they have in the past.
Rocky, obviously success breeds confidence, and it's only one game, but did you kind of see your young guys grow up a little bit in that game last week?
Well, I thought our offensive line, that's where we're worried about the young guys. I thought they played much, much better in the first game. And I thought our defensive line played a lot better than the first game too, but now they were doing something completely different because of the offense. We'll see how they hold up. You know, we're not very big. Now, that's by design. I'm not complaining. That's by design, because as many spread teams and throwing teams as you play now, you're looking for quickness and speed in the defensive line. Well, these guys have a different attitude. They're gigantic. Their fullbacks are they got 2 fullbacks that are 245 pounds too. So these guys, they get shoe to shoe and say, okay, we're just going to run over you.
How do you avoid a situation like what apparently they got into at Portland State, where it pretty much became a shootout? Like, how do you make sure that doesn't happen?
I don't know if you can do that. I mean, you go into every game to try to shut somebody down and slow things down, but every game there's a possibility that a quarterback's going to get hot or a running back's going to get hot, and you're going to have trouble slowing them down. Then it turns into a can you outscore them or not. Now, hopefully we can slow them down a little bit better than the first two teams did, because they didn't slow them down at all. The other thing is they haven't turned the ball over yet either. They've caused some turnovers, but they haven't turned the ball over themselves. And then they have a real tendency in special teams. They've proven that they're one of the best block teams in the history of college football. Last year they set a league record. They blocked 10 kicks. And the first game they didn't block any. Last game they blocked 3. They blocked 2 field goals and 1 punt against Portland State. So I don't know what they're doing different than other people do, but they have a great ability to block kicks.
Does that concern you with your kicking situation?
Well, it concerns me with the protection of our kickers and punters. I mean, you can't make it if it gets blocked, for sure. And so far, our punt protection's been pretty good, but they're going to put it to a test.
Coach, you mentioned how the first 3 teams you're facing this season all kind of have different offensive philosophies and schemes. Was that kind of by design to kind of give the team all sorts of different offensive looks?
No, I think the schedule was decided long before this year. Now, I actually think it's as good a preseason or non-conference schedule as you can have because of that, because it gives you a chance to prepare for the conference. And obviously our number one goal is to win the conference championship, and it gives you a chance to prepare for the conference. And I think if everybody's paying attention on how well North Dakota's been playing and how well San Jose State's been playing, the last 2 games make it really good preparing us for our conference play.
You don't take into consideration the opponents they played in the first couple of weeks?
You always take that into consideration. But to score 55 points a game and gain over 500 yards a game, you can't do that against the scout team.
Rocky, can you speak to the progression of Nat Burhay and, in your defense, and you made the transition last year from Warrior to Aztec. Thoughts on how he's done?
I think he's a good player. I think he's one of the better defensive backs in our league. Now, I say that, and it's nice to see his production in the first 2 games, because that position is designed for him to make a lot of plays. That's the way in our defense that position is designed. I mean, you're supposed to have a really good player there that makes a lot of tackles. And it didn't surprise me at all that he made 14 tackles against Army, because when you play that kind of offense, that guy should make double-digit tackles, because he's the one guy they should have trouble blocking. So I think he's getting better as we go, and he'll just get better as the season goes along.
Does it take a particular mindset and a particular mind to play that position?
Yes, it takes some physical ability, too. You have to have enough speed and quickness to be like a DB, and you have to have enough toughness to be like a linebacker. But the mentality is he should want to make every tackle. And there's very few guys in this world that actually think that way. I want to make every tackle. And that position is designed. I think we have 2 guys on our team now that do that. I think Jake Feely wants to make every tackle. He wants to make every single tackle, and I think Nat's getting more and more like that.
But you've kind of seen him have to arrive at that.
Yeah, I think he's had to learn that, because I don't think he's ever been put in a position where we rely on him that much. I mean, I don't think in any defense, anybody relies on that position more than we do in our defense.
Rocky, what do you see from their quarterback, Hendrickson? I mean, he had like a breakout game his first start of the season. What do you see from him?
He played the first game. They had a starter that was a transfer from, I think now, North Carolina, I think. Either that or South Carolina. They had North Carolina. They had a transfer who was left-handed, which would have been just fine with us because our scout team quarterback's left-handed. But he got hurt in the first game right before halftime, and Hendrickson came in And I think he completed about 60% of his passes from then to the end of the game, too. And last week, I can look it up. I got the stats right here. And last week, he threw 6 touchdown passes. So now some of that is Harden. Some of that is the receiver, because a couple of them, he just threw them up deep, and Harden went and outraced everybody to the ball and went 66 yards for a touchdown and things like that. So anytime a quarterback has a good day, a lot of it has to do with the guys he's throwing to. Now they also have 2 freshmen or redshirt freshman receivers that are 6'4" and 6'3". One of them, the 6'3" guy, weighs 233 pounds. So at their receivers, I'm saying this, and everybody's saying, well, it's North Dakota. I'm saying this, and their receivers are a tough matchup for us because of the height of the young guys and the speed of Harden. Harden's as fast as anybody we've played against in the last 2 years. I just was watching last year's TCU game to try to get a feel for it, because TCU has wide receivers like this guy. And it's the same thing. It's very similar.
So how do you, I guess, on the scout team, like who will play Harden? Like how do you sort of prepare for that?
Well, we've got 2 young guys. They're not as fast as he is. Eric Judge is from San Diego High, and Lloyd Mills is from Arizona. They're little guys, but they both run fast. Yeah. Last year we had Ezell Ruffin, and that was great for our scout team. It wasn't good for our team because he should have been playing, but it was great for our scout team.
You guys established the run well at the beginning of the game against Army. You plan on doing that to keep the offense in North Dakota off the field?
That's our plan every week. I mean, now some teams won't let you establish the run, but you'd like to establish the run. Because if you can run the ball, it opens up everything else.
Coach, you said after the game that one of the best things about the game was the fans. How important is it to fill up the stadium because it's not on TV?
Well, it's always important to get to home field advantage. And if nobody shows up, you don't have a home field advantage. I was most impressed with the student section last week. That's the most students we've ever had at a game, I think. I mean, the 4 years I've been here, that was by far the most students we've had at a game. And like I said after the game, they even stayed through most of the third quarter. Now, someone told me that's because the game started at 4:30. If the game had started at 7, they'd been out of there by halftime. But this game starts at 5, so hopefully the students will show back up and they'll have a good time through the third quarter. But I was impressed with the student section especially.